They say the strongest bond in the world is between a mother and her son. They tell you it's a love that can withstand anything: poverty, heartbreak, even betrayal. But they don't tell you what happens when that bond isn't a bridge, but a noose. My name is Elena, and for 32 years I lived for my son, Jason. I was the woman who worked double shifts at the hospital just so he could have the best cleats for soccer. I was the woman who took out a second mortgage to pay for a university degree he never actually used. I thought I was building a life for him. In reality, I was just sharpening the knife he would eventually stick in my back. Jason was what the neighbors called a golden child. He had that smile, the kind that makes you want to give him whatever he asks for before he even finishes the sentence. But beneath that smile was a calculation, a cold, hard arithmetic that viewed me not as a mother, but as a bank account with a heartbeat. Tonight, I'm going to tell you how that arithmetic failed him. I'm going to tell you how he thought a flight of stairs was his shortcut to my estate. And I'm going to tell you about the one phone call, one single 4-minute conversation that didn't just take away his inheritance, it took away his very existence. Honestly, guys, writing this out makes my hands shake. The betrayal in this story isn't just about money, it's about the ultimate violation of trust. If you believe that family shouldn't get a free pass to be toxic, hit that like button right now. It helps the algorithm find more people who need to hear these warnings. Jason moved back home when he was 29. He told me he'd gone through a bad breakup and a corporate restructuring. He looked so defeated, standing on my porch with 2 suitcases and that same pouty lip he used to have when he was 5 years old and lost his favorite toy. My heart melted. Of course I let him in. I made his favorite lasagna. I told him he could stay in his old room as long as he needed to get back on his feet. But months turned into a year, then 2. Getting back on his feet apparently involved sleeping until noon, ordering expensive takeout on my Uber Eats account, and spending his nights in the basement yelling at a computer screen. I tried to be the supportive mother. I'd leave job clippings on the kitchen island. He'd just move them to the trash without a word. Then the vultures started circling. It started with small things. My jewelry, pieces my late husband had given me, began to vanish. First, a gold locket. Then, my grandmother's engagement ring. When I confronted Jason, he looked me dead in the eye with a look of pure, practiced concern. "Mom," he said, his voice soft and patronizing, "we talked about this. You told me you put those in the safe deposit box last month, don't you remember?" I hadn't been to the bank in 6 months. That was the start of the great erasure. He began telling the neighbors I was slipping. He'd tell my friends from the garden club that I was having a bad day and couldn't come to the phone. He was building a case. He was painting a portrait of a senile, elderly woman who couldn't handle her own affairs. I found the brochures in the recycling bin. Serenity Oaks. Assisted living for the memory impaired. He wasn't looking for a job. He was looking for a room for me, one with a locked door and no access to a checkbook. The confrontation happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. I had finally gathered the courage to check my retirement accounts. I found out Jason had managed to forge my signature on a power of attorney document. He had drained $40,000 in less than 90 days. I was waiting for him at the top of the stairs when he came home at 11 p.m. He smelled like expensive gin and desperation. "I know what you did, Jason," I said. My voice didn't shake. I felt a strange, cold calm. "I called the bank. I called the lawyer and I called the police. You have until tomorrow morning to be out of this house, or I'm pressing charges." He didn't argue. He didn't even try to lie. The golden child mask just fell off. His face became a mask of jagged, ugly rage. "You're an old woman, Elena," he spat. He didn't even call me Mom. "You're living in $1 million museum while I'm drowning. That money is mine anyway. You're just a squatter in my future." I turned my back on him to walk down the stairs. I wanted to go to the kitchen, lock the door, and wait for the sun to come up. I felt the air shift behind me. Then, a sharp, violent force between my shoulder blades. I didn't have time to scream. The world became a blur of mahogany railing and white carpet. Thud. Crack. Slide. My head hit the floor at the bottom of the landing with a sound like a wet branch snapping. I lay there staring at the front door. My left leg was bent in a way that made me want to vomit. Pain was a white-hot scream behind my eyes. But I didn't close them. I forced myself to stay awake. I heard his footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. He didn't rush down to help. He stood at the top of the stairs and looked down at me. "Well," he said. His voice was casual, like he was commenting on the weather. "I guess you really are getting clumsy in your old age. Maybe that fall was fatal. I should probably wait a few minutes before I call the ambulance. You know, to make sure I don't give them false hope." He sat down on the top step. He pulled out his phone. He started playing a game. He sat there for 15 minutes while I lay in a pool of my own blood, waiting for me to stop twitching. Can you imagine that? A son sitting and playing a mobile game while his mother bleeds out 10 feet away? And if this story doesn't prove that some people are born without a soul, I don't know what does. If you're rooting for Elena to get her revenge, type justice in the comments right now. I read every single one. I didn't die. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it spite. Pure, unadulterated spite. When I woke up in the ICU, Jason was there. He was crying. He told the nurses he was heartbroken that his poor, confused mother had wandered toward the stairs in the dark. He held my hand and squeezed it, not with love, but with a warning. I played the part. I let my eyes stay glassy. I whispered that I didn't remember a thing. I saw the tension leave his shoulders. He thought he was safe, but I had a secret. 2 weeks before the accident, I had hired a security firm to install hidden, pinhole cameras in the hallways and the office. I hadn't told him. I hadn't even told my lawyer. I wanted to catch him stealing. I never expected to catch him trying to kill me. While I was recovering in the hospital, Jason was busy. He was at the house, throwing away my clothes, inviting his handler over to look at the furniture, and finalizing the sale of my car. He thought I was never coming back. I had the footage sent to my phone. I watched it in the middle of the night, the blue light of the screen illuminating my hospital gown. I watched him push me. I watched him sit on the stairs and wait for me to die. I watched him drink my favorite vintage wine to celebrate. I didn't call the police. Not yet. See, the police would arrest him. He'd get a lawyer. He'd claim it was an accident. And with his golden child charm, he'd probably get 5 years and be out in 2. That wasn't enough. I wanted to take away everything he valued, and Jason valued only one thing: his status. The day I was discharged, I actually checked myself out and went to a hotel. I made the call. I didn't call the police. I called a man named Marcus. Marcus was the head of the handler group Jason had been borrowing money from. Jason owed them nearly $500,000 in gambling debts. He had promised them the house as collateral, the house he didn't own. "Hello, Marcus," I said. My voice was as cold as the floor I had landed on. "This is Elena, Jason's mother." There was a pause on the other end. "I was told you were incapacitated, Elena. Jason said the house was in probate." "Jason lied," I said. "And Jason doesn't have your money. In fact, Jason just had his inheritance legally revoked. He is being disowned as of this moment. I have the video of him attempting to end my life. By the time the sun goes down, he will be a homeless man with a warrant out for his arrest." I heard Marcus take a slow, deep breath. Debt collectors like Marcus don't like being lied to, especially when $500,000 is on the line. "What are you suggesting, Elena?" "I'm suggesting that I am moving the deed of the house into an ironclad trust that Jason can never touch. But I'm also suggesting that I know exactly where Jason is going to be at 6 p.m. tonight. He's at the Red Lion Bar, celebrating his new wealth. If he can't pay you with my house, I suppose he'll have to find another way to settle his debt with you." I hung up. Jason was arrested at the bar, but the police were the least of his problems. Marcus's associates got to him first in the parking lot. They didn't break his legs. That would be too kind. They took his status. They called every business associate he'd ever lied to. They leaked the video of him pushing me to the local news. By the time he was processed into jail, he wasn't the golden child. He was the most hated man in the city. I sold the house. I took the money and moved to a small cottage by the sea, a place Jason doesn't know exists. I changed my name. I changed my number. The last thing I heard? Jason tried to call me from prison. He wanted me to pay for his legal defense. He wanted Mom to save him one last time. I didn't answer. I just watched the waves hit the shore. Justice isn't a flight of stairs, Jason. It's a long, lonely walk into the dark. Jason thought he was the architect of my end. He didn't realize I was the one who built the foundation he was standing on. When you betray the person who gave you life, you don't just lose an inheritance, you lose your soul. If you enjoyed this story of nuclear karma, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel right now. We are so close to our monetization goal, and every single subscriber helps us tell more stories of justice. Also, don't forget to check out our other video, The Mother-in-Law Who Bought My Wedding Dress. Trust me, that one is even wilder. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and remember, never trust a golden child who carries a calculator.